And welcome back to our Rated and Slated for the Chinese Grand Prix 2025, a race where we saw Hamilton's first Ferrari pole, his first Ferrari, win. Yes, it was a sprint race and then disqualified. Charles Leclerc didn't do too bad either, but then disqualified. Pierre Gasly, yeah, disqualified. Liam Lawson, not disqualified, but some could argue he may as well be in the troubles he's having with the Red Bull, but we can't place the entire blame on Liam Lawson. But yeah, let's talk about it. So we have rated all the drivers just like in Australia. This is pretty going to be in order of, I don't want to say rubbishness, but not so goodness, if that is even a word. Not so good to man of the race. So we're going to have to start by default here because they both did good, but then we're going to be talking about both Ferrari drivers. We're going to be talking about Charles Leclerc, and we're going to be talking about Lewis Hamilton. Now, Lewis Hamilton, normally, had he not been disqualified, he'd be right up there in the top 3 of the drivers, at least, simply because that sprint race pole and that sprint race win was absolutely fantastic. And by the looks of it, when everything was dialed down, maybe he didn't quite have the fastest car, but he still did fairly well. And I felt he did better overall than Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc did lose his front wing, and Charles Leclerc at the first corner nearly took both him and Hamilton out the race. So yeah, that's why Charles Leclerc's kind of at the bottom there of the DQ pile. And then both Ferraris there, but equal really with them is Pierre Gasly. Yeah, Alpine. I mean, they threatened to do okay in the end. Well, in the guise of Pierre Gasly, he didn't. But let's be fair, I don't think his teammate fared much better, if I'm honest. We'll get into his teammate in a bit. And so moving on, we spoke about him yesterday. Yeah, Liam Lawson. I mean, what more can you say? This guy may well be going home, as in home back to New Zealand, if you believe all the social media and the stories. We did a big video about it yesterday, but I think we can't throw all the blame at Liam Lawson, even though he's kind of at the bottom of the drivers that essentially finished. Why? Well, ultimately, yes, he is in a Red Bull. Yes, that Red Bull is a lot faster than the 20th place that Liam Lawson put it in qualifying. And in the end, Liam Lawson did finish slightly further up in 12th. It was 15th after, but that was prior, obviously, to all these disqualifications. And the fact that 3 people got disqualified and Liam Lawson still did not score points is an issue. But as much as it may be Liam Lawson's fault, you have to put all the blame as well on Red Bull and the way they do that second car. Now, we spoke about, should Liam Lawson have another chance in Japan? Absolutely, he should. Red Bull have invested far too much. And I think if he does go for Japan, it just shows that Red Bull, I mean, massive questions. And are they a toxic environment outside of Max Verstappen? Really have to wonder with all the failures there and all the failure of the juniors. Helmut Marko needs to go. I mean, that's absolutely sure. So next up, we've got, I think he said Mick. I always do that. But no, we've got Jack Doohan, who, the reason he's this slow, I mean, in the sprint, he did a whoopsie, didn't he? And he's got, I think, 4 penalty points now. And in the race, it was Isaac Hadjar, I believe, was behind him, even though he did get a 10-second penalty. He finished 13th in the end. Isaac Hadjar was behind him, and he just basically did that absolutely late 2016-esque Verstappen move, which was absolutely ridiculous. And hang your head in shame, Jack Doohan. I really supported you in Australia, but no, that kind of driving has absolutely no place in Formula 1. So next up, Nico Hülkenberg. Yeah, the man that probably should have beaten Bortoleto, but he should have beaten Bortoleto. But the opposite's happening. He's getting a beating from Bortoleto, isn't he? Hülkenberg finished 15th, 1 place behind Bortoleto, albeit a lap down. And yeah, I'm really disappointed. I mean, after Australia, where he scored, let's be fair, those very crucial points. Not particularly very good there. Disappointing. So next up, we have got Fernando Alonso. He was out qualified by Lance Stroll, which you wouldn't normally expect. I think at least for the sprint, it was the other way around for the race, I believe. And he didn't really do enough laps to justify being any higher. No fault really of Alonso. It was just an issue with the car, which is kind of sad. So we've now got Yuki Tsunoda, who, was beaten by his teammate in the race, but let's be fair, it was a bad strategy, and Yuki Tsunoda, by no means of his own, he just lost his front wing, didn't he? And from the highs of Australia to that bad strategy, not particularly great, really, was Yuki Tsunoda. And you could make an argument from him being higher than Isaac Hadjar, but no, we've not done that. But we have put Bortoletto higher than Nico Hulkenberg, as you can imagine, out qualifying him and being better in the race than Nico Hulkenberg. This guy's not too bad, is he? The F2 champion, the man that beat Isaac Hadjar to the championship. Although I think it was so close, you run the last few races again, you may well get the opposite result, essentially. And speaking of a certain Isaac Hadjar, here he is, Isaac Hadjar, above all the others, and he qualified 11th. No, not qualified 11th. He finished 11th, just outside the points after these DQs, which is a bit of a shame. He did beat Tsunoda, albeit a tiny bit of luck was the fact that Tsunoda's wing, I think unbeknownst to anyone, it just decided to give up. But the reason he's higher than Tsunoda is after the trials and tribulations of Australia, this guy, he didn't do too bad, did he, at all? I mean, he qualified, what is it? He qualified 7th, so he did out-qualify Tsunoda in qualifying as well. But with all the pressure on him after the whoops-a-daisy in Australia, I think this guy did very well. He can look himself in the mirror and be a very, very proud man indeed. So next up, we've got Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz scored his first points for Williams after the DQs. Yeah, he finished 10th, but I don't think that's the best we've seen from Sainz. He's getting used to the car, but it does show how good Alexander Albon is, I feel. So, Stroll, I mean, yeah, he finished again ahead of Alonso. He finished in 9th, and qualified Alonso in the sprint. He's not done too bad. Stroll has really started, and I'm gonna become even more obese because of the humble pie I'm having to eat when I talk about Lance Stroll. He has done a solid job. He's had a really solid start to the season. So next up, we have Kimi Antonelli, who started 8th, finished 8th on track at least, but really finished 6th. Somehow, he got driver of the race. Excuse me, I'm trying not to burp. Somehow, he got driver of the race. Why? I don't get it. A solid-ish drive, albeit he got beaten by Ocon. He finished fair a few seconds, like over half a minute behind George Russell, but still a solid-ish job, but not setting the world light at all. So after that, after Kimi Antonelli, we've got Alexander Albon, who finished 7th in the end after everything. So it was a double points finish for Williams, but this guy, wow, I mean, just like Australia, he really is showing us his class with that 7th finish. And where did he qualify for the Grand Prix? He qualified 10th as well, both times beating Sainz. I think we all expected Sainz to do better than Albon, as I said in the race review, but he's not. And I think it's absolutely great. It's brilliant. Not that he's beating Sainz, he's rising up to the fight because we know how good Carlos Sainz is. Now next up we have this man here, Lando Norris. Really, I think, in spite of finishing second, disappointing. I believe he had the fastest car. He was the fastest car driver combination, and this is why Max Verstappen was so good. He had the fastest car driver combination, and when he did, he kept on delivering. And that's something that Lando Norris, I think, needs to learn. He didn't quite deliver in sprint qualifying, starting a bit far back, and then did a whoopsie for the race. And then he didn't do particularly well in the race towards the end by not listening to his engineer. Sadly, the brake pedal was getting long. There was obviously an issue there, and he just decided not to listen and nearly lost the place to George Russell. For goodness sake, it was not particularly good at all. But Ocon is not next after Verstappen. After Norris is obviously Max Verstappen, who ended up finishing 4th. And I think that's as high, realistically, as Max Verstappen could have really finished. What a solid end to that final stint, though. And he ended up, he qualified, next to Hamilton in the sprint race, which wasn't too bad at all. And he ended up finishing 4th as well. Starting 4th, finishing 4th. But it was a battle. And I think the Red Bull was not the best car, as we can probably see. But I think the plaudits for Verstappen that's as good, I think, as it's going to get for Max Verstappen and Red Bull at the moment. You can't suggest that Max is not trying. Even Christian Horner came out and said, he's speaking to everyone at the factory. He's doing really well, etc., etc. So from Verstappen, we have this man here, Esteban Ocon, who did good for Haas. He did so good. He ended up, qualifying. He was qualified just outside the top 10 in 11th, but then he ended up finishing 5th for Haas after the DQs. And he's now leading. He's the top Ferrari driver in the championship. Could you believe that? So, yeah, Ocon doing absolutely fantastic for Haas, I think. Cannot argue with that at all. So we have now got the podium, the top 3, and in 3rd place is George Russell. Better than Australia. I mean, he really took the fight to Lando. I don't think he had the car. Lando ended up passing him, but then he took the fight to Lando again towards the end of the race. Another lap, and he would have got Lando. Absolutely positive about that. But once again, about as good as George Russell was going to do in his Mercedes. And he's really showing now that he is the Mercedes team leader. With all these rumours about Max Verstappen possibly going to Mercedes, you have to ask, or you have to, Toto Wolff's going to have to look in the mirror and be like, is Max Verstappen worth all that money when George Russell is, at least in the second race, doing really well. And yeah, I think George Russell is worth winning. The better George Russell does, I feel the less likely Verstappen coming to Mercedes is. Maybe Verstappen doesn't want to go to Mercedes, but I'm just saying. So in second place on the podium is Oscar Piastri. Yeah, he's not first, despite having an absolutely fantastic weekend in terms of the race. His first ever pole position, and then pretty much, a lights to flag victory. I'm not saying he didn't have it all his way, because there were times there when Lando Norris did get a bit close, but he had it absolutely under control. Cool as a cucumber was Oscar Piastri, but the driver of the day is, like it was Kimi, another rookie, believe it or not, and like it was Kimi Antonelli back in Australia. I absolutely cannot knock Ollie Behrman. I mean, this guy, he ended up qualifying 17th. Qualifying 17th, and then in the race he ended up finishing what ended up being 8th. There was 10th, but all the passes and stuff, Chow, etc. Yeah, the slight cringe radio, but we loved it. We love the cringe. We love Ollie Behrman cringe on the radio. Man of the race, Oliver Behrman. I'm still struck. Why was Kimi Antonelli man of the race? I don't get that at all. It was really weird. It just didn't make any sense. So let's then go from last to first. Obviously, we have Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, both Ferrari drivers disqualified. Hamilton awesome at the sprint, but they both got disqualified. Ferrari, what are you thinking of? Gasly again disqualified. Lawson just too slow, but is it Red Bull's fault? Yeah, probably. We've got Jack doing naughty on that moving under braking, very bad. Hulkenberg beaten by his teammate. Alonso beaten by his teammate in qualifying, average in the race. Tsunoda not too bad there, solid start. That strategy really screwed him. Bortoletto beating Hulkenberg, really good. Hadjar bouncing back from an absolutely fantastic Australia. Carlos Sainz still being beaten by Alex Albon, but a fairly solid job. And speaking of solid Stroll. Absolutely. Everyone's man of the race apart from ours. What was that about? Kimi Antonelli starting 8th, finishing 8th, but then obviously after DQ getting a bit higher. Weird. Alexander Albon proving again how awesome he is. Lando Norris, we feel, had the fastest car driver combination, just couldn't do anything with it. Max Verstappen finishing 4th, as high as he was going to finish. Well done to Max. Ocon in the points. Double points for Haas. Right up there, Ocon. Thank you very much. George Russell 3rd, getting the absolute max out of the car, challenging McLaren a tiny bit. Oscar Piastri, pretty much the perfect race sprint weekend. Well, the perfect race for Oscar Piastri by any means, but despite finishing starting 17th, finishing up there in 8th once the DQ, Ollie Behrman easily our man of the race. Ciao, yeah. Cringe radio. So, if you made it to the end though, please give us a subscribe. That would be absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. But until then, we'll speak to you soon. Thank you for watching, and above all else, stay safe.